The last time you bought a bag of Lay's chips, something felt off. Something not empty, just different. You check the price tag, $4.99, same as last month. You check the logo, same bright colors. But when you pour it out, the chips barely cover the bottom of the bowl. The same thing happened when Oreo packs dropped from 14.3 ounces to 10.7 ounces in 2023. So is this just nostalgia? Or something else going on here? Most of us think of inflation as a number on a news ticker. $4 a gallon, 10% more for milk. But there's a second, quieter version of inflation. One that doesn't trigger your internal alarm because it's designed to slip past your attention. It's called shrinkflation. And it's not just a change in size, it's a calculated bet from the brands that you're too tired, too busy, and too distracted to notice that you're being shortchanged in plain sight. Here's the thing, if you think a few missing chips is the end of the story, you haven't seen what's happening inside the corporate boardrooms at PepsiCo or Kraft. They aren't just trying to survive inflation, they found a way to turn it into a profit strategy. So why does this work? Why don't we walk out of the store in a rage? Shrinkflation works not because you're stupid, but because your brain evolved to ignore losses that don't scream. The answer lies in something called the Fechner Law. Back in the 19th century, researchers discovered a blind spot in human perception. We don't notice absolute changes, we notice relative ones. There's a threshold called the just noticeable difference. If a company raises the price of your coffee by 50 cents at Walmart, you feel it right away. That's a price shock. But if they keep the price the same and shrink the Gatorade bottle by 10%, your brain literally can't register the loss. And USDA reports show household staples shrank 11% on average in 2024. Companies are using this blind spot to manage your perception. They aren't just shrinking products, they're redesigning them to fool your eyes. The tall and slim illusion. They make a box narrower but keep the height the same. Your eyes focus on height so it still looks full. The indentation trick. Jif peanut butter jars and deodorant sticks now have massive structural domes at the bottom. The container looks the same size on the Kroger shelf, but the actual volume has been hollowed out from within. This is what you might call the pressure valve of economics. When costs go up, like wheat spiking 30% after the 2022 Ukraine disruptions, a CEO has three choices: raise prices, risky, consumers might switch brands; lower quality, dangerous, the product might end up tasting like cardboard; or shrink the quantity. That third option is the quiet choice. It's the path of least resistance. But here's the data point they don't want you to see. Over the last 2 years, corporate profits didn't just stay steady, they exploded. CPG firms hit 12% net margins in 2023, and S&P 500 food sector margins reached 8 to 10% by the third quarter of 2024, according to BLS CPI data. Nielsen IQ even tracked toilet paper rolls losing 44 sheets since 2019. At this point, shrinkflation isn't just a survival strategy. It's a margin expansion strategy. It's a test to see how much they can take before you finally notice. Here's the most unsettling part. Shrinkflation is a one-way street. When the price of grain or oil goes down, do the chips come back to fill the bag? No. The smaller size becomes the new normal. You're now paying a permanent tax for a product that's objectively worse than it was a decade ago. IRI reports show 70% of CPG SKUs were altered between 2022 and 2025. Let's talk about the math they're hoping you never do. A 12% shrink equals a 13.6% effective price increase, like what happened with Lay's chip bags. Toilet paper? About 25% fewer sheets per roll. That's charmin'. None of this shows up on your receipt. It's hidden in what you might call your attention scarcity. And it's evolving. Beyond shrinkflation, we're now seeing something called skimflation, where companies keep the size the same but replace real ingredients with cheaper fillers. Real butter becomes palm oil. Real sugar becomes high fructose corn syrup. They're betting that you're too exhausted to care. Even as the FTC probes shrinkflation under Biden and Trump tariffs loom in 2026. Shrinkflation survives on silence. It relies on the trust between a brand and the consumer, a trust they're currently breaking. So how do you fight back? Next time you grab your usual cereal, grabbing your usual cereal, same $4.99 price, but 20% fewer flakes since last year. First, ignore the big number. Stop looking at the $5.99 price tag. Look at the tiny text on the shelf, the unit price. This is the only number that tells the truth. It's your shield against psychological pricing. You can scan it through the Crow Grab. Second, beware the new look. When you see a label that says new look, same great taste, check the weight. It's almost always a distraction for a smaller volume. Third, speak up with the data. The next time you notice a product has shrunk, don't just feel resigned. Share it. Post the photos and tag #ShrinkflationUSA. Or join Reddit communities, where thousands of people are sharing their experiences. Awareness is the only thing that can't shrink. Once you see the just noticeable difference, you can't unsee it. The invisible tax becomes visible. And let's end this video with a random 3 a.m. quote. Shrinkflation survives on silence. Awareness is the only thing they can't shrink. If you want to see a similar video on the topic, why young Americans can't buy homes anymore, then click on the video flashing on the screen right now. See you there. Bye.